On this week's episode of Flop Factor, the guys will go into the Eastern Conference and Western Conference playoff pictures where a lot of teams at the top and bottom are just fighting it out, dueling it on both sides of the nation. There's expansion teams on the way, apparently. Their owners are saying yes. Let's see if it all goes through. It's tank time, and Adam Silver is deciding we should change everything up once again. And Cade Cunningham's lungs are collapsed. How long will he be out? I'm not sure. And last off, Darius Acuff Jr. has a signature shoe deal. He's the first collegiate player to ever do that. Could this make him stay another year in college? Find out what the guys think all on this episode of the Flop Factor that starts right now. Well, that's how this episode is starting out. This is whatever episode this is of the Flop Factor for myself, Cody Burton, DJ McDermott, RJ Rice, and Brayden Laszlo. We're all here. We're all ready to speak about NBA basketball and the beautiful association that we all love dearly. Nice. Okay. Starting us off, the Eastern Conference playoff picture is really heating up. You have two teams who were on the outside looking in throughout some parts of the season, the Atlanta Hawks and Charlotte Hornets, who are now right in the midst of everything. The Atlanta Hawks are now number 5, the 5 seed in the East. They've jumped over multiple teams, including the Miami Heat, Orlando Magic, Philadelphia 76ers, and Toronto Raptors over the past couple of weeks. The Hawks have been absolutely torrid recently. They're 9-1 in their last 10. They've won 3 in a row, and they went on an 11-game win streak before having it broken up. They've won 14 of their last 15 games. That's quite special. Jalen Johnson's that guy. And then on the Charlotte Hornets side of things, they've won 5 games in a row. They're now 39-34. And the 9 seed of the East just all tied up right now with the Orlando Magic in the 8-9 spot, which is absolutely ridiculous if you think about where the season began and how highly ranked the Magic were at the start of the year. And the Sixers aren't doing too hot themselves. They've won 6 of their last 4, but they've just turned out to be a little bit mid recently in a time where all the other teams at the bottom of the East are on fire. Them and the Toronto Raptors have been the victims. They had great starts to the year and have started to just slow down and coast at 500 the rest of the way. And the Hawks and Hornets potentially are taking over due to that, guys. What can you see about the East? There's always action in the East around this time of the year. There's always like a lot of teams around the same level of skill level. I mean, the Miami Heat are also 39-34, and that 8, 9, 10 is all tied up, which is wonderful. I mean, you have to expect it's going to be these 10 teams, and that's going to be in the postseason picture for the East, but there's a lot of different matchups, a lot of different just switch-ups that could happen along the way that we could get a really, really interesting end of the year.
Yeah, this Eastern playoff picture is very interesting to say the least. The Orlando Magic were the 5 seed at one point in time. They kind of collapsed a little bit. Philadelphia and Cleveland have both been pretty mid as of recently, the past couple of weeks. Toronto's been falling down a little bit, but the Atlanta Hawks at the 5 seed. I think if Atlanta keeps this little bit of a stretch up, they can get in that top 6 and be guaranteed a playoff spot and not have to fight in the play with teams like Miami, Charlotte, Orlando, and Philadelphia. But I think really the 8 through 10 spot, they're kind of just battling to see who will be the most garbage and get kicked out or just lose in the first playing game and not even have a chance to make it into the playoffs. But I think if the team that I'm looking at the most, those are the 76ers. I think you know what talent you have. You traded Jared McCain. This is all on the line here. You don't know how long that winning window is going to be, but having Tyrese and VJ Edgecombe kind of extends that winning window a little bit more. It gives you a little bit of, is it time to go away from Joel? I should say more for Joel Embiid's sake, not a winning sake, because I think if you give this team a couple more years, they could be in that top 5, top 4 range. But it's all about just building around for the 76ers. And who's going to come out of the play-in, I couldn't tell you, but I think whoever it is might not have a fun time in the first round.
No, I think the Eastern Conference race is really interesting, especially as we're talking about the play-in. The 8 through 10 range is very competitive right now. All of these teams have the same record at 39-34. I know you touched on the Orlando Magic, but you can't forget about the Charlotte Hornets, who have also been on an absolute tear in their last 10 games on a 5-game win streak right now, 7-3 in the last 10. And this is a team that I would be kind of afraid to play if I was one of those top 6 seeds, because this team has been hot for the second half of the season so far. All the way from late January till now, they've just been absolutely so much fun to watch. And they have some key games coming up. Their next game is actually tomorrow against the Philadelphia 76ers, who you just talked about. And they're only a game ahead of them. So if you win that game, you're moving up 2 spots, as long as the Magic and the Heat don't also win. But it's this time of the year where you play your game and you're instantly looking at what are the scores around the association to try to see what type of situation you're in, what you need to do. Obviously, the number one thing for the Charlotte Hornets right now is take care of your own business, keep winning games, and the rest will play itself out. Even if it doesn't, you're still in a solid spot. And if I'm one of those top 6 seeds, I am absolutely terrified of the Charlotte Hornets team right now. You got Brandon Miller playing at his best in his young career. You got LaMelo Ball distributing the ball at a high rate. You have Con Knipple shooting the ball at an insane clip from the field. So this team is efficient. This team can play defense. This team can hang with anybody in this league. And that's a team I do not want to see come out of the play-in if I'm one of those top 6.
Yeah, the Eastern Conference right now is reminding me a little bit like the Western Conference. Is reminding me a little bit like the Western Conference of last year. Kind of just like that 5 to 10 seed are all within 2 games of each other, which is kind of insane. But I mean, just looking at it right now, I know we talked about the Hawks on Wednesday when we did our Flop Factor live, and how with the tear that they've been on recently. And they actually play the Celtics tonight, and I feel like that would be. I mean, we were talking about the Pistons being a statement win. If they were to win against the Celtics, who are, I mean, obviously winning against the Pistons without Cade Cunningham, that's a completely different conversation. But winning against the Celtics right now, they're basically fully healthy. The only player that they have out is Nikola Vucevic. But if they win against the Celtics, there's a conversation to be had that they could go on a run. And I mean, this is the time to get hot for any team. No team wants to be have a losing record, which is, I mean, what the Orlando Magic, they're 4-6 in their last 10 games. That's a team that you really that's a favorable matchup. If they were to make it out of the play-in, then any of those top teams would like to see the Orlando Magic or play the Orlando Magic over teams like the Hornets, like the Heat, like the 76ers. But I think a team to look out for is going to be the 76ers. I think they have a really good chance of getting out of the play-in and making it into the actual playoffs, because right now they're playing some really good basketball. They scored 157 points last night or the night before against the Chicago Bulls, which is their most since like 1980-something. And this is without Tyrese Maxey. It was Joel Embiid and Paul George's first games back or Joel Embiid, I mean, he's been in and out the entire year, as we've all known, and Paul George, that was his first game back from his 25-game suspension. But they're doing this without Tyrese Maxey, who is one of the best offensive players in the league when he is on the court. So I think that if Maxey can come back healthy and not rush that recovery, I feel like the Sixers could make some noise if they were to play a higher seed like the Celtics or the Knicks, or even if Maxey comes back and Cade Cunningham doesn't come back, you could see a 76ers versus Pistons matchup, and you really never know what can happen, especially with a fully healthy Sixers team, and I feel like that's been a huge question for the past couple of years.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to bounce off that Sixers statement because they finally have Paul George back. They're starting to get a little bit more healthy than they were during this stretch where they were around 500. So this is a team that if they end up in the play-in picture and like are matched up against like a Pistons team that potentially could be without Cade Cunningham, and the Celtics, who in all likelihood should beat the Sixers no matter what if they're fully healthy or not, but it would still be a very competitive first-round matchup for a team that probably wasn't expecting this competitive of a first-round matchup against a team like the 76ers. But this is a team that I personally see bouncing up from the 7th spot, potentially going over to Raptors. But the Raptors themselves are also a very tough team. Like this entire Eastern Conference, they're all gritty teams. They're all tough that have very difficult scheming or very difficult to scheme against whenever it gets to a 7-game series. And then you even have a team that's maybe kind of easier to scheme against, like the Charlotte Hornets, who could sneak in those 7-8 spots. But this is a team that's on fire. This is a team that may be very inexperienced, may be very young, but maybe only have a couple of heliocentric style players that have been rolling things for him throughout this stretch of the season, but they're still hot. They're still on fire. They're young and hungry, and that's very hard to go against whenever you get to this level, especially whenever you're not really. A lot of times in the recent NBA, a 1 seed has been just a 1 or 2 seed have just kind of fallen asleep a little bit ever since the play-in started and have put them more susceptible to losing in these situations. It's not happened yet, but you never know. It could potentially happen in the future, and these are all teams at the bottom that very well could be doing that this season. Moving over to the Western Conference side of things, it's already pretty much all even out. I mean, the play-in picture is almost set, and by almost set, I mean the 7, 8, 9, 10 are like all. I mean, the Suns are the 7 seed right now. They're 3 games back of the Houston Rockets, and then the Clippers are the 8 seed, and they're 3 games back of the Phoenix Suns, and then the Blazers are close with the Clippers, and the Warriors are kind of still close behind the Blazers and Clippers, but still they're 3-7 in their last 10. Curry's still hurt, and Moses Moody just went down with a gruesome injury. But at the top of the West, though, you got 1 and 2, a 2-man race at the top trying to get that number 1 seed. The 2 teams in the West have already clinched a playoff spot. The San Antonio Spurs are only 2 games back of the Oklahoma City Thunder, and then other than that, you have the Lakers just 10 games back of the Thunder, 8 games back of the Spurs. But in that middle of the pack, there's a couple of things that could be switched around. The Lakers are 1.5 games in front of the Nuggets. The Nuggets are half a game above the Timberwolves, and the Rockets are 1.5 games behind the Minnesota Timberwolves. So there's a little bit of stuff going on there that could potentially shift things around in that middle of the playoff picture. But what we're looking at is the Thunder and Spurs at that top. Getting that number 1 seed, especially in a matchup between these 2 teams, if it ends up being the Western Conference Finals matchup, which currently is projected to be that way, and potentially, if you're the 1 seed, that makes you not have to play whoever gets that 3 seed in the next round, which could be the Nuggets, could be the Lakers. Both of those teams are pretty well orchestrated, but once you get past that, if you're able to get past all of that like you should as the higher rated seed, whoever has that home court advantage in the series all means everything. And against these 2 teams, especially when the Spurs at home were able to dominate the 2 games in Oklahoma City. One was close, and another one the Thunder won. But these 2 teams, whenever they're healthy, they're the top of the class, top of everything. And whenever you get in that playoff atmosphere, it's much different if, let's say, the Thunder are playing the Spurs in Oklahoma City for the majority of the series, for most of the series, compared to the Spurs only playing them in San Antonio for the lesser amount than having to go on the road and playing them in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I tell you what, with this Western Conference, Cody, I agree with what you said. It's mainly that 1 and 2, Oklahoma City and San Antonio are fighting for that 1 seed. I mean, they're both going to be 1 and 2. It's just which order will it be by the end of the year. What I'm looking at, though, is that, I guess, 3 to 6 range. And the reason why, if the season did end today, I tell you what would be such a fun playoff matchup: Denver and Minnesota. Man, that'd be so much fun to watch. But most likely these standings will change. But if you're looking at the play-in spots, and I think the thing that kind of separates the East and the West in this stance, you know the 10 teams that are going to be in the playoff, I guess, hunt picture, whatever you want to call it, with the play-in and then the playoffs. I think really if you're a team like Houston or Minnesota, your 5 and 6 spots are not safe. I think you really need to have an efficient end-of-season run to solidify that you're one of the top 6 teams in the playoffs, because, I mean, you could play a team like the Clippers or the Suns that can get you on any given night, and then guess what? You're going to be, most likely even completely out of the playoffs it could be, and you had a spot with a couple of weeks remaining in the year. So if you're one of those fringe teams that's within the play-in and, I guess, current playoff picture bubble, your spot is not safe. And that's what's so much fun about the Western Conference. They're so close in records. I mean, for the most part, if you look at the 3 seed all the way down to the 9 seeds, maybe like 9 games surrounding maybe 7 teams. I mean, that's a lot of, I guess, motion that can happen in those standings, and it's the matter of fact of which team will have that end of season run that'll solidify one of their playoff spots. And honestly, would not be stunned if, who knows, Phoenix could even jump Houston and even get a spot.
Yeah, I mean, another matchup I'm looking at that would be a lot of entertainment. would be Lakers Rockets first round. You've got LeBron and KD, you got Luka in there, you got all those young stars on Houston as well, and that would be must-watch TV. I always love the Western Conference playoff matchups just due to the star power that's in that conference. I mean, and for the majority of our lives, it's always been the Western Conference is so much better than the Eastern Conference, and I think this year is obviously no different. You got you got the two top teams in the league in the Western Conference. And that's going to be a fun race as well. I would love to see that matchup later down the line, hopefully in the Western Conference Finals between San Antonio and Oklahoma City. Kind of brings back some of those early 2010s, late 2010s, KD, Russ, and then obviously the big three there in San Antonio with Tim Duncan, Kawhi, and Manu Ginobili, and obviously Tony Parker as well. But I think that this would be an all-time playoff in the West. I mean, no matter who comes out of the play-in as well, because you look at Phoenix, they're also pretty young with Devin Booker leading the charge there. You look at Portland. I mean, we thought they'd all be here in this position now, and they get a chance to prove themselves, prove that the youth and the thing they're building there in Portland can come to fruition and try to go on a run in the play-in and some maybe in the playoff. And then you got teams like the Warriors, kind of a fallen dynasty, fallen on injuries, and the adversity that Steve Kerr and this Warriors team has just faced this season is pretty much second to none. I mean, this is a team that we always expect to be in this position, but now that they are with no Steph Curry, really none of their superstar players, it's going to be interesting to see what Steve Kerr cooks up for the Warriors in this situation. But the West is always a dogfight, and they produce so many great matchups, and it's must-watch TV every year.
Yeah, on that Warriors point, I really think that whoever gets out of the play-in, whoever's going to be playing the Thunder and Spurs, it's going to be between the Suns, Clippers, and Blazers. I really don't think the Warriors have a chance. I wasn't high on them to begin the season. I wasn't high on them at the trade deadline, and now that these injuries are coming, it really sucks. But I think it just furthermore proves my point. I think Cody mentioned it earlier, 3-7 in their last 10 games. Moses Moody, really gruesome injury. I mean, there's not really much you can say for the Warriors right now. Steph Curry's injured. Even if he does come back, probably not going to be at full health. And it really is just unfortunate. A team that I really wouldn't. I don't want the Spurs to play the Clippers. I feel like the Clippers, the games that they've played against the Spurs this season have been close, like scarily close. And I just really think that Kawhi Leonard, along with Benedict Mathurin, I think Darius Garland has played really well on the Clippers since he has gotten there, since he's gotten healthy. In terms of what teams I'm looking at, I'm just looking at the top three teams. The top three teams in the West, I mean, obviously Thunder and Spurs, but the Lakers have skyrocketed up there. Each of those three teams are 9-1 in their last 10 games. Each team has looked phenomenal. I mean, the Thunder are almost back to full health. The Spurs have been just on a heater. We talked about it on Flop Factor Live. They've lost 2 games since January 31st, which is absolutely insane. Those only 2 games being to the Nuggets and the Knicks, who are 2 higher-tier teams in the NBA. And Luka's been playing out of his mind. And I want to say I saw a report on ESPN or some NBA analyst said something that the Lakers can make a lot of noise in the playoffs if Luka leads the way, if Luka returns to his Mavericks finals run. If he does, and he has more support now than he did then, I mean, I think Lakers are definitely a team to watch out for. But I mean, Thunder, Spurs at the top 2. I agree with you. That just a lot of entertaining matchups in the top 6 teams, and I really think it's going to be between the Suns, Clippers, and Blazers that come out of the play-in.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to look more inside the Thunder and Spurs race to get that number 1 just by looking at their upcoming record. So I was looking, and the Thunder currently have 2 tanking teams left on the schedule, just 2, and then they have the Knicks, Detroit, Lakers twice, Clippers, Nuggets, and Suns. All those teams still have stuff to play for outside of Utah and Chicago. They play Chicago tonight and Utah on April 5th. I have to say Utah's probably playing, like, at that point in April is whenever they start pulling in the Utah Stars and the G League guys, all of those guys. But other than that, everyone else has things to play for at this time of the year. The Spurs, they have 3 tanking teams remaining. One of those is the Bucks, and they play them tomorrow night. But they have the Bulls on Monday, and they have the Mavericks on April 10th. So that'll definitely be a G League lineup on the second to last game of the season. Could potentially, who knows what can happen. I'd say the Spurs will still be playing their guys if there's any chance of getting that number 1 seed. But they have the Warriors, who are the Warriors, the Clippers, Denver, Philadelphia, Portland, Dallas, Denver are the other teams they have to play. Denver's on the last game of the regular season, so if everything's wrapped up by then, who knows? But these two teams have schedules coming up that both have some difficult matchups on there. Playing Denver twice for San Antonio, one of the teams that have already beat the Spurs this year, could be rough. And the Thunder still having the Lakers twice could be difficult as well, especially how Luka's been playing.
Yeah, I'm honestly really looking at these next 3 games for the Spurs. You have the Bucks, you have the Bulls, you have the Warriors. I'm not worried about those games whatsoever. I feel like those are should win games, but it wouldn't kill them if they didn't. I'm really just looking at the Clippers and Denver back-to-back on April 2nd and April 4th. Those are 2 teams that, I literally just mentioned the Clippers have given the Spurs a rough time. The Spurs have still pulled out in those games, but I think the one game was a 19-point comeback for the Spurs, and Denver was technically the last team to beat. Denver was the last team to beat the Spurs. I think it was back. They're on a 7-game win streak now, so 7 games ago. So I'm just looking at those 2 games. I feel like if the Spurs can win those 2 games against the Clippers and the Nuggets, then the 1 seed is really going to be up for grabs. But if the Spurs drop 1 or 2 of those, then I can see them resting their starters for those last 2 games against Dallas and then rematch against Denver on the 12th.
One thing I also want to mention is that both teams have 1 back-to-back remaining. Both teams apiece have 1 stretch of back-to-back games remaining. The Spurs is April 1st and 2nd against the Warriors and Clippers. Meanwhile, OKC's is immediately after this Bulls game. On Sunday, March 29th and Monday, March 30th, the Knicks and Detroit Pistons on back-to-back games. That's a very unfortunate back-to-back stretch there. That's very favorable for the Spurs, as those are two of the top 3 teams in the Eastern Conference. Now, the Pistons obviously don't have Cade Cunningham, but still a very difficult matchup there. But moving on a little bit, I guess further along, not directly on this season, but we mentioned this a little bit on Flop Factor Live, that we come on live every Wednesday night on United to the Moose, WVFM Morgantown, 91.7 on the local radio, and unitedtothemoose.com/listen if you ever want to tune in. If you're just one of our many international listeners tuning into this one and don't know exactly what West Virginia University College radio sounds like, but NBA owners did vote to explore the Vegas and Seattle expansion bids, which is very interesting, very cool. We talked about this a lot, talking about potentially expansion drafts happening, what can happen a couple years down the line whenever they decide to release this at the new CBA. I believe it's 2028, the 2028-29 season for the 2 expansion franchises to start playing, which is there's a season in between this year and that season that they're expecting that would expand the league to 32 teams, giving Seattle a team back and giving Las Vegas a team, which is very interesting with how Vegas sports have been. You have the Golden Knights and you have the Aces, who've done a great job building a fan base, but then the Raiders, on the other hand, have not.
Yeah, for the expansion team, I mean, Cody, you mentioned it. We talked about this on Flop Factor Live. It wasn't a matter of if this was ever going to happen. I think people knew the past, I'd say, 2 or 3 years that the NBA was going to expand at some point in time. It's going to be when. And now that we have a definitive year date, 2028, 2029, first team that comes to my mind, if you say expand the NBA, pick a city, Seattle. And it's not even close for discussion. I mean, especially since the revolving Seattle sports city with the Mariners doing good now. I think, Cody, you mentioned this. The Seahawks just won a Super Bowl. Their fans going to be riding high, especially for the nostalgic Supersonics that were good. They had playoff teams in Seattle. It's not like the Supersonics were necessarily bad. They had Sean Kemp and Gary Payton. Just name a couple of their stars. I believe they even had Ray Allen for a little bit of a time.
Yep.
I tell you what, Seattle is a great sports town. It's a great fan base. It's the energy you get from the city is second to very few. And I think giving them a franchise along with Vegas, how we've seen the NHL with the Las Vegas Knights, they won the Stanley Cup, I believe, in their first 5 years?
Uh,
was
2 years.
Was it 2 years? Yeah,
Yep.
even more impressive. I mean, Vegas is so far. I mean, they're going to get the Athletics as well. You're getting more teams in that Vegas market. So to kind of go there, you see how the Aces are playing. They're getting a lot of buzz, a lot of generated hype. I think putting the two teams here are good. It's a better question of how would you do it for conference purposes? Would they both be in the West? Would one be East, one be West? It'd be really weird, though, if you had Las Vegas in the East. But, I mean, I guess we've seen crazier things before.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to talk a little bit about that. We could possibly see Minnesota, Memphis moving to the East while you have these two new teams. Well, new, I say quote unquote new for Seattle, but bringing them back into the NBA along with Las Vegas. I mean, you hit the nail right on the head with Seattle. This is the team that literally drafted Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook right before they moved down to OKC. So, I mean, the fans kind of deserve this in a way. I mean, the support, it's not like the support was never there for this team either. I mean, Seattle is one of the greatest sports cities in America. You give them back their NBA team. They already have NHL now. They have MLB, NFL, and now all they're missing is NBA. And you could possibly see some new rivalries form from this. I mean, Seattle and Portland right in each other's backyard. You could see that rivalry start to blossom a little bit because we know in college football, at least with Oregon and Washington, that is a fierce rivalry in the Big Ten, formerly Pac-12. But, I mean, this opens the door for so much more for the NBA. And I do agree. I think it wasn't a matter of when. It wasn't a matter of if. It was a matter of when. And now we do have those dates. And I think it was the last expansion draft for two teams was 1998 with Memphis and or Vancouver, and it was some other expansion team. I know Cody's probably Googling that right
That's
now.
what I'm doing.
But
It was 2004 Charlotte Bobcats.
Was
it was just the Bobcats.
yeah,
For what, most recent expansion?
Yeah, most recent.
Yeah,
It
I
was
think-
just the Bobcats, 2004. And number one, the Bobcats draft picks were Lonnie Baxter, J.R. Bremer, Primoz Brezic, Maurice Carter, Predrag Drobnak, Desmond Ferguson, Marcus Fizer, Richie Frant, Brandon Hunter, Jason Capono, Zaza Pachulia, Sasha Pavlovich, Jamal Sampson, Tamar Slay, Teron Smith, Jeff Trepanair, Gerald Wallace, Jadee White, and Lauren Woods.
Yeah.
Jared Wallace in that list is like the only one that actually did something
And
for that
Zaza.
franchise. Yeah, and well, that was the
Zaza,
expansion draft.
That's
right?
like PTSD for me hearing Zaza Pachulia's name.
Zaza was traded. I know he was traded for something that they used him in the package. Let me pull this. I'm pulling up his basketball reference page so I can really see.
But the last time the NBA had two teams in the expansion draft was 1995 with the Raptors and Grizzlies. And it would be interesting to see the rules that they have in place for the teams like around the league. I'm pretty sure they did 8 protected players. So you're going to have teams like the Thunder in these next couple years making tough decisions on who they want to keep, on who they care to lose. It's going to be really interesting. Or you can have teams like, I'm trying to think here, who's going to be bad in 3 years? I mean, you could have teams that are just a complete fire sale. Take anybody. We want to restart. So it's going to be interesting to see what teams kind of.
The Pelicans.
Oh,
probably.
for sure.
It's at least one of
The
them.
Pelicans might have Giannis at that point.
Per Connor Roberts.
Per
yeah.
some.
I don't know. It'd be a lot of fun. I think that expansion is always fun, no matter the league, because you get to see fan bases who've never had a team in this league, fans that are getting their team back, and the history behind it. Are they gonna completely separate the history of OKC?
They will, yeah.
They will.
But the Thunder don't even really use Supersonic.
Sonics?
The only thing the Thunder do is just respect their retired numbers. Like, there's been no player wearing number 20. There's been no player wearing number 1. Whatever Sigma wear, 33, I believe.
So is that gonna transfer back over to Seattle?
Yes.
Yeah, so it'd probably
Okay.
disappear in OKC's sake,
Yeah.
I'd
And
imagine.
we'll
'cause
finally
it's
see a
not their
number 1 in the
franchise.
Thunder jersey.
Yeah.
Okay.
And number 1, someone will probably wear 20 again. And I just learned Tamar Slay in this expansion draft he was indeed from Beckley, West Virginia, and went to college Woodrow Wilson High School in Beckley, West Virginia, and went to college at Marshall. So shout
Always
out
a
Tamar
West
Slay.
Virginia connection.
Yeah, but And I was they did immediately trade Zaza Pachulia after this. They traded him for a second-round pick. So yeah,
Wow.
they loaded up for youth and traded Zaza away. Even though
For you.
Groundbreaking stuff.
Zaza's one of the few players who
Who was that pick used on? But I'm assuming it doesn't say.
I think Brandon Robinson.
Oh.
He played 4 years in the NBA.
Oh. You got a couple years out of him, I guess.
Yeah, but very interesting.
Yeah, no, I mean, no matter what, I mean, obviously, you guys made the point about Seattle, about how huge of a fan base, especially after, I don't know which one you said it about the Seahawks winning the Super Bowl, but definitely elevated the fan base of the franchise. Now that you have an expansion team coming in, that's just even better. I'm just thinking, I mean, even if you don't get a huge crowd in Las Vegas, which I still think you are going to, I mentioned it on Flop Factor Live, these teams are going to be bidding for $7 to $10 billion off rip. Like, I know it's going to be in two to 3 years from now, but there's so much time. I mean, I know we mentioned the Athletics coming to Las Vegas. There's going to be so much that happens in the next 2 to 3 years for both cities, for Las Vegas and for Seattle, that there is just so much potential for the NBA to use this to their advantage in terms of growing, like, how popular it is, and growing and for Seattle, growing how popular they are, Las Vegas growing how popular they are. But I mean, we were talking about what teams are going to be bad in 2 to 3 years, but it's like I said, there's just so much that can go on in these next 2 to 3 years that you just really don't know. But I'm really excited to see this expansion team, and I mentioned it on Flop Factor Live as well. I'm really intrigued to see what rules they're going to have, to see what players teams are going to keep, what players teams are going to say you guys can draft. I'm really intrigued to see when they release those rules, and kind of just all the mock drafts that people are going to do of just random players from certain franchises, like Zach LaVine I mentioned, an aging player on the Kings, a pretty bad team with an expiring contract. That might be somebody in 2 to 3 years you might be looking at and saying, hey, you can go on this random new expansion franchise. But I think it's good for the NBA, and I think it's good for sports as a whole.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm just so excited to see what happens, because I know for a fact Seattle's going to be – they're ready. They've been ready. But I'm just interested to see how Vegas will receive it, because Vegas is so hit and miss. Like, it seems like the teams that have relocated in have kind of struggled to pick up a fan base, but the teams who have just been born in Vegas, which we've seen this trend in a lot of sports, the teams that are born in the city instead of relocated most of the time do a lot better to grow a fan base than the teams that are relocated into a different city. Like, we've seen it with LA and the Rams. We've seen it with the Chargers going from San Diego to LA. They've both struggled to pick up a fan base in Los Angeles, but teams like the Golden Knights in Vegas and teams like that have been able to really pick up a fan base. Now, obviously, there's exceptions. The Thunder went from Seattle to OKC and have one of the better fan bases in the NBA, but it's very interesting to see how this picks up, and I'm excited to see where it goes. But moving forward, another NBA proposed concept, I guess, is something Shams posted today at 9 a.m. about anti-tanking concepts. All three of them are very stupid. Very stupid. Just to get my opinion out of the way early. The three, they're expected to have modifications at least, but for a formal vote in May to choose which one they would like if any of them happen. They go as follow. 18 teams in the draft lottery, seeds 7 to 15 in each conference. They're going from playoff teams in the lottery. Flattened odds with bottom 10 teams having a 8% chance. The remaining 20% odds distributed in decreasing order through 11 through 18, and a lottery drawing for all 18 picks. Number 2, 22 teams in the lottery. That's ridiculous. Using a 2-year record. A 2-year record. Seeds 7 through 15 plus the 4 playoff first-round exits in both conferences. Lottery teams would reach a minimum win total floor in each season, such as 25 wins. If a team falls short of the floor, it gets slotted to meet the floor. Top 4 drawn as part of its lottery as it's currently. And 18 teams by a 5x5 lottery. Bottom 5 teams have equal odds for the top pick. With lottery formed for picks 1 through 5, bottom 5 have a floor at 10. Those that fall out of the top 5 get sorted in a separate drawing.
The third one is just stupid. I'm not even going to go over that. To me, that is just dumb. Like, in what form does that make any sort of sense? The bottom 5 teams have equal odds for the top. Okay, fine. The bottom 5 teams in the league, 1 through 5. The bottom 5 is then 4 to 10. I'm not even going to go over it. That's dumb, stupid, garbage. The second one, 22 teams in the lottery. The 2-year record, why? Because then if you do that in this scenario and you use the first-round playoff exits in both conferences, if let's say you're playing, well, let's use current standings, for example. If you're the Clippers and you have to play the Thunder in the first round, that you're not going to win, why try? There's no point in trying. And A, you're going to give the 1 seed basically a free walk more than it already was. But that team could get the number 1 overall pick. And even if that 8 seed was not bad and they were actually a really good team, guess what? You're going to punish the bottom teams that just straight up suck, not trying to tank bad, but like that are just actually bad due to roster construction. And they're just going to be down there in purgatory pretty much. And you're going to have these playoff teams basically just fighting each other. That's it. That's pretty much what that does. And then the first one for the 18 teams in the draft lottery, I guess for that one, if I had to pick any of the 3, it'd probably have to be that one because I guess it makes the most sense in a way. Because like the bottom 10, all right, you give them each 8%, so there's not necessarily a reason to tank. Like for the top spot, it'd be, if you're 1 through 10, bottom-wise, good luck. And then the rest are just kind of drew out in a decreasing order. I think that one, out of any, might have the most or the highest chance of getting somewhat voted. But I think the other 2 are just, you're just at that rate trying to make stuff up and hope it works because that is just a failure.
I mean, you want my way of fixing this? Like, because I don't like any of these.
Sure.
This might be a hot take. Get rid of the draft lottery, please.
And what would you replace it with?
What the NFL does. You know why? Because you add so much more value to the pick now.
That's going to add tanking. That's going to be literal tanking.
I don't see a problem with tanking because if you are the worst team in the league, you get the number 1 pick, you're not going to be that bad anymore.
Here's my question to you, though. Look at Philadelphia in the early 2010s.
No, I understand.
While I'm saying I agree with Brayden because I would much rather have a team be really bad for 2 to 3 years and be able to be resurrected by the draft than have multiple teams be strung out bad for years and years. Because that's what this would create. This would create. I mean, it's already like they don't need to fix this. This is already happening. The Dallas freaking Mavericks were in the play-in last year and got Cooper Flag.
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason for them to like do this. But like, I mean, I'm reading through some tweets about like quote tweets of this, and it's just like, this dude said Adam Silver solving tanking by making sure 22 teams have a reason to tank.
Exactly. I mean, like you look at the NFL, the teams that don't succeed through the draft is due to management. And you look at the NBA, there's teams out there that may be only a piece or 2 away who are really bad right now that never get the chance to pick number 1.
Here's my question to that, though. You could be a piece or 2 away for 5 years.
No, I get that.
And then you're going to be in that same trapped corner of you're in the top 4 every year. Well, this isn't basketball,
my point, though, right?
But being a Browns fan, you see
it's
where
the
I'm
management.
coming from.
It's the management.
It's a mix of management and being bad.
No, I get it. But, like, if you look at OKC, for example, they've compiled the draft picks. They built through the draft. But, like, they never really had the number 1 overall pick in that span.
That's just called good management.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, you should incentivize tanking to make the league more competitive.
I see what you're saying a little bit, but you can't.
You're not going to have, like, a Pelican situation. I mean, the only reason the Pacers have the worst record in the league right now is because of Tyrese Haliburton not playing, and I think that's very obvious.
That's accurate.
But I do think that if you give these teams their rightful pick without the draft lottery, you're going to see the NBA's competition level go up tremendously, in my opinion.
I just wonder why they haven't done that already. That's my question.
Well, I think it's to draw in views because you know how much people watch the draft lottery every year?
I love the draft lottery.
I mean, I think it's entertaining. I just don't think it's
yeah.
beneficial to the league.
It's not. I just love watching it and just watching teams get screwed. I think it's pretty funny.
The Mavericks get incentivized for trading away their best player and since Dirk Nowitzki.
Well, we all know that was
rigged.
scripted. That was
what I'm
scripted.
saying. You get rid of all of that, but like that's what the NBA is kind of like known for, I guess. I don't really know.
I don't think there's necessarily a set way to go about this.
Since-
I think in any way, that one way is going to be wrong more than another.
I'm gonna go with a bolder take and say that I'm not mad. I'm not really mad at the first and the third option for this like proposed idea. I just really hate the second option of the 22 teams with the 2-year record. I just really hate that. And I'm looking at teams like the Pistons and the Spurs, who the Pistons and let's just say if you're doing a 2-year record in 23 to 24 they had 14 wins. In 24 to 25 they had 44 wins. Like, that's a 30-win difference. I just don't know how that kind of matches up to that 2-year record. Same with the Spurs. They had 34 wins last year, 55 this year. That's 21-game difference. I don't like using the 2-year record. It should be a year-by-year thing. So the first and the third options I really don't hate because they're just expanding it to 18 teams. They're just changing the odds for different for just depending on where you are in the standings. But for option number, I really hate option number 2. I think number 1 and 3, if they were adjusted a little bit, I feel like there's a lot of potential there. But I agree to the point that I don't think it should be changed right now. And if they were to change it, it should have been changed a while ago because no other sport has like a lottery up to this standard. So I mean, if it were to be changed, should have been changed a while ago. I say it, I mean. I shouldn't say if it ain't broke, don't fix it, because there are definitely some major flaws. But I think that instead of proposing these big rules to change the entire format, I feel like it should just be little snippets here and there.
Yeah, one thing I'm worried about with all of this is that Adam Silver is just trying to take one out of Manfred's pocket and like do the draft lottery like the MLB. Like, it's not a completely different sport that has a minor league the players go through, so it's a lot less of a likelihood for even a top pick to like potentially be a bust or not. And they're just like, hey, man, if they're doing this for teams with low payroll, maybe that's the same reason why these teams are bad. Maybe they're just trying to be bad for all these years. And I pulled this up because there's been 6 NBA teams that have never had the number 1 pick in any of their franchises' history: the Miami Heat, Oklahoma City Thunder, Utah Jazz, Indiana Pacers, Denver Nuggets, and Memphis Grizzlies. And one team has never had a number 1 overall pick play for their team, and that's the Indiana Pacers. And one thing that's just the Pacers aspect of this is because the NBA's been so adamant on trying to prevent them, for example, from tanking just because they were in the finals last year and lost their top player due to a injury that knocked them out the rest of the year for this season. But it's so interesting because they don't really ever do this whenever, let's say, like, if it was the Warriors in this same exact situation. Oh, wait. They were in the same exact situation literally 5 years ago, and they ended up getting the number 2 overall pick.
But that's another situation where it comes down to the management with the bust and stuff like that. And
well, the Pacers have never had the opportunity to make a bust at that high of a pick.
Yeah, but it's just so interesting because they're so adamant on it this year, and after they've already made a change, and that changes seem to work pretty well with what they want. And it's mainly, I mean, I know exactly what it is. It's because of gambling companies, and they are tired of having people do prop bets on like a Brandon Williams triple-double and stuff. But, like, it's just so stupid to do this. Like, I just keep it the same. There's like it works perfectly how it already is, and doing this would just make a dynasty be even more like potential. But maybe that's what Adam Silver wants. That's what he wants. He loved it whenever it was the Warriors and the Cavaliers going head to head every single year, with the Warriors being the almighty like demigod versus LeBron just carrying a team. They love that because that's a storyline. It's just like, let's just do this 7 times like WWE style. But now there's parity, and it's a lot less of a chance for storylines to build because you've had a different NBA champion for 7 straight years now. So it's just, I don't know. Adam Silver's gone, which I was never a big fan of Adam Silver, but the perception of him's gone from the best commissioner during the bubble because of how he was the guy to quote unquote bring sports back from the just not being played anymore. But now it's just like he potentially could be the worst commissioner. It's not the NHL.
Well, it's kind of hard to not beat Rob Manfred for that position, but I really think for Adam Silver, this is arguably one of the biggest decisions he has ever made since being commissioner, because this can ruin the sport if done improperly. And you even mentioned it, Cody, the 7 different champions. Coming from a Cavs fan who was in that series between Cleveland and Golden State every year, I would rather prefer the latter of the 7 different champions, because guess what? You're getting a new storyline and a new champion almost every year. Like, yeah, you can have sometimes with 2-peats. That's fine. It's just a good team, which you might even see this year. But it also gives everybody else a chance to be motivated and an actual time to sit down and say, you know what, we can actually win this and not just get screwed over by LeBron or Golden State with Kevin Durant being added.
No, I completely agree. I love the fact that there's so much parity in the league right now. And to your point, I mean, we might see OKC go back-to-back, but that's because they've been building to this.
Great management.
They've been building
The
so
Paul
long.
George trade set them up for a decade.
Yeah, and we're
if
now
not
seeing
more.
it come to life. We're in the thick of it. But you also have a team like the Spurs who could dethrone that and then possibly win it themselves. So
But they've also been building up to that.
no, that's what I'm
That's-
saying.
yeah.
Like, these teams, it's not done overnight. And that's not what I'm saying with getting rid of the draft lottery completely. Like, we know one player, unless it's the next coming of Michael Jordan and LeBron combined, is not going to lead a team to the finals in year one. Like, that's just not going to happen. You won't see that in today's NBA because there are so many complete teams around the league. But it gives the team without, like, for Indiana example, never had the number 1 pick, never had a single number 1 overall pick play for them. You give them the number 1 overall pick, they're not going to go win the championship. I mean, they might, but at the end of the day, it's just a building block to building better competition throughout the league.
And the reason why LeBron can't carry a team by himself to the finals now, because over the past 10 years in the NBA, the biggest thing that has been revolutionized besides the three-point shot has been the bench. You need a complete bench to win a title, and there's no way you can say no at this rate. You have to build completely from top to bottom of the rotation. That's how you win a championship, not just star players anymore.
Yeah, definitely. And speaking of star players, to get a nice transition, Cade Cunningham a week ago was diagnosed with a collapsed lung and will be reevaluated now a week from today, which could be an issue. I mean, it depends on if he's able to get back. All depends on what this reevaluation looks like, because collapsed lungs can either be just a 2-week injury and he's back right before the playoffs, or it could knock him out potentially in the entire first round. It just depends on how the treatment, how he reacts to treatment, but it just depends on everything. But according to doctors and guys who are talking to CBS Sports, it shouldn't be as bad as it sounds, as being so athletic, they can bounce back like crazy, and it should be no more than 4 weeks, which just puts the Pistons in a really rough spot going into that first round matchup against whoever they'd be playing.
I really think if you're the Detroit Pistons, you have to take the safe approach here, even if the doctors, like you said, Cody, are saying, well, he bounce back and be just fine. There's also a situation or scenario where he won't do that, and it can be a complication that you don't know what can happen with his health. I think if you want to play the smart card, and I think for Detroit, you trust the rest of your players around you. I think Detroit has a really talented roster, especially in the Eastern Conference. Take the safe card. Just bench him for, 3-4 weeks. We'll see where he is after maybe 3 weeks, and you can go from there by a day-by-day basis, because if he comes back in that first round and you take care of business, guess what? He's healthy for the rest of the playoffs. You're not risking him in the first round. Say there's some complication, and then you get bounced in the second round.
Yeah, I think that the Pistons would be fine in the first round without him. That second round is really what scares me for the Pistons, because you're either facing, at this point in time, the Cavaliers or the Hawks. And we saw the Hawks and Pistons go to overtime the other day on Wednesday. It was a great game. But with no Cade Cunningham for a 7-game series against either of those two teams potentially in the second round, that's what really scares me. So I completely agree with you, RJ. You got to play it safe with Cade Cunningham and his health, just to make sure that you are primed to go on a deep playoff run in Detroit.
Yeah, I agree. I hate to play it safe, but I feel like it gets to an extent. I feel like, how many games are there left in the season? 10-ish, maybe, not even. It's
Around like 3 weeks left in the year.
yeah. So I mean, I feel like if you keep him out to the end of the regular season, that should be good. If he needs some extra time, maybe keep him out for those two, because obviously you're going to get a home playoff game. There's no doubt about it. Keep him rested for those playing games, and then you're going to have the first 2 games are going to be played in Detroit. Maybe sit him for those 2. Gauge what the team needs. Gauge how the team plays, because I mean, I mentioned earlier, but if you play a team like the 76ers and all of a sudden Tyrese Maxey is healthy, you have their best player back, their best point guard back, and your best point guard might not be back. So I mean, even if you drop 1 or 2 of those games, then I mean, you rest them to a point, and then if you see that something that's where you just kind of, I feel like you just had to kind of gauge it from there and see what happens. But I feel like definitely rest him to the end till the end of the regular season. Doesn't matter if he's ineligible for awards, even though that 65-game rule is a completely different conversation. Bench him to the rest of the end, to the end of the regular season, and then kind of just gauge on where to go from there.
Did we all see what Adam Silver said in the media about that?
Yes, I did.
65
That's
games.
That's why I said it's
It's a great rule, perfect rule. Yeah, no, that is not true.
That's why I said it's a completely
you are not
going to
have the actual MVP of the league because of this, and other awards.
That's why I could go on for hours on why that is why that should be changed and whatnot. But that is a conversation for another time.
Yeah, the 65-game rule is something that they created just because Joel Embiid won the MVP over Nikola Jokic that one year, and because there was such a big outcry, and it's completely blown up on their face.
I mean, I was one of those that did an outcry for it, because I also thought that it was not the best decision on their part because Embiid missed so many games, but to bring it down and make it a 65-game rule was a little outrageous.
Yeah. But last topic, it's a nice topic to talk about instead of the past couple we've been saying. But Darius Acuff Jr. became the first collegiate player to get a signature shoe with Reebok, and he's the first NCAA men's athlete to receive one with a major U.S. brand while he's still in college, which is very interesting because this is a guy that is going to be a lottery pick if he does enter the draft, but with NIL, with everything, there's a chance that a lot of these guys decide, I'm going to stay another year. I'm going to get my craft right. I'm going to work, and for his sake, I'm going to work under Coach Cal for another season, see where I'm at after that, and potentially be the number 1 overall pick next year.
Yeah, I think for Darius Acuff Jr., to have a deal like this, and from Shams' tweet, being one of those first NCAA men's athletes to receive one of these, I mean, it's a big U.S. brand in Reebok. Considering, will he go into the draft? I would think everybody at this rate is like, yes, he kind of has to at this point. He'll be very high up in that draft. It kind of reminds me of, I know it's a very different situation with Cooper Flagg. In a sense, one of those younger stars getting those shoe deals early. But this is like a signature shoe. This is a big-time thing for a college athlete. Could we see more of these now because of if Darius Acuff goes on and does really great things in the league? Definitely, and I think that'd be amazing for the sport, definitely the sport of basketball, but even just college basketball as a whole, because you're going to have these younger athletes having these shoes. It's going to just influence more generations. I love it.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. I mean, Reebok is one of those brands, especially that have seen better days, but I mean, if Acuff goes crazy in the NBA and tries to like really hit home the Reebok brand, not Adidas, my fault. If he really tries to like put on for that brand, like that is going to be massive. We could see a lot more NBA players going down the Reebok path and even collegiate athletes. And I love this stat as well. Acuff is the second freshman since they became eligible in 1973 to begin his NCAA tournament career with consecutive games of at least 20 points and 5 assists, joining Chris Paul in 2004. So, I mean, he's a special guard. In my opinion, we know Coach Cal and his track record with point guards. He is definitely one of the best. I think at least top 5 at this point, potentially number 1 if he does some great things in the league. But it's so much fun to watch. So happy for him, and can't wait to see if he goes into the draft this year.
Shout out Rajon Rondo. If you know the joke, you know.
Yeah, another cool stat that I remember seeing was the most points by a freshman in his first 2 tournament games. Beating out Kevin, I want to say Kevin Durant had the most. I want to say he beat him by 6 points or so. But just, I mean, I think it's really good. I think it's more great on, like you guys said, Reebok's standpoint, because I mean, you think of the top shoe companies. I mean, obviously, you're thinking Nike, you're thinking Under Armour, you're thinking Adidas, and even New Balance has been on the rise. Those are 4 shoe companies that I feel like every NBA fan, every basketball fan, every shoe fan is going to name before Reebok at least. I mean, you can even put Converse in there if you really wanted to. But, I mean, I think, like you guys said, I feel like it's huge for Reebok. And I feel like I mean, obviously, it's nowhere near, but it's kind of like AJ DeBansta a couple weeks ago, a couple months ago, where he was like, "Oh yeah, I might stay another year" and stuff like that. And I feel like it really is. I mean, obviously, congratulations, Darius Acuff was one of my favorite players. I actually had them upsetting Arizona in my bracket. Unfortunately, that did not come to fruition. But I knew Darius Acuff was going to go off, and he did. He had 28 points. But I feel like it's just another one of those like media bait things where it's like, hey, he got this shoe deal. He's the first NCAA athlete to have it. So let's see what happens from there. I might stay another year. I might not. Who knows? Again, these guys are freshmen. They are younger than us at this point, which is actually crazy to think about. But I mean, they're probably going to go into the draft because they have a lot. It's not NFL money and NBA money are two completely different standards of what your contract is, and your rookie contract, you're still going to get a paid decent amount, even if you are a lottery pick. And Darius Acuff with his tournament performance, I wouldn't doubt he's a top 5 pick.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I just want to point out that this dude's such a great 3-point shooter that I pulled up a shot chart of him. So from both corners, not just like corner shooting in general, from both corners, he's shooting 75% from 3. He shot 75%.
The entire season or the tournament?
The entire season.
Oh my
He didn't shoot much of them. He didn't shoot much corner threes, but from the right wing, he shot 45% on the season, and the left wing, he shot 39% on the season. That's something. That's definitely something.
Just got an Instagram post that John Calipari said, I said it about Maxey, I said it about Shea. You're going to regret passing on this kid. He was talking about Darius Acuff.
Yeah. And he's such a great player. But one thing I want to point out, speaking of Shea, is that both of these players, Shea with Converse, now Acuff with Reebok, are paving their own way, paving their way with a shoe company that's not as popular as it used to be. And now that's going to start paying dividends. It's already paid dividends for Shea. He's pretty much his own creative director over there at Converse, just doing whatever he wants to do over there in terms of creative directoring and all of that stuff, and with his shoes and making them on and off the court accessible. Acuff's probably going to do the same way. He's that guy that's very flashy on the court, and will try to bring that fashion on the court onto the off-court levels as well. And it's going to be very interesting to see what he goes with these shoes. But it's something to think about now, to be like, yeah, this guy's a lottery pick, but there's always a chance he stays another year, especially with how deep this draft class is. He's probably guaranteed to be number 1 if he goes next year. But who knows? It's always something to leave you with, a food of thought. Let's see how this draft ends up. If everyone decides, you know what, I'm going to go into the draft, or if there's going to be a couple of guys be like, I'm going to stay another year in college, or whatever they decide to do in between. But that'll do it with this week's episode of The Flop Factor. For myself, Cody Burton, for DJ McDermott, RJ Rice, and Brayden Laszlo. We will catch you all next week. You can listen to The Flop Factor on all podcast platforms at The Flop Factor NBA Podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Podcasts, and also YouTube on the United to the Moves YouTube channel. This is Flop Factor, and we are ending now.